Hey guys, this is Steve Roy, host of the Fit Dad Nation podcast. Welcome to the show. Thank you for listening. So, if you've been following me, what we do on social at all, you know our group is getting ready to start the 75 Hard Challenge on November 1st. Okay, that was a challenge created by the owner of 1stPhorm Supplements, Andy Frisella. And so, this is going to be one of the longest challenges we've ever attempted, definitely the most strict. And because I haven't done this personally, I'm actually going to be doing it along with my group. I wanted to bring on a guest who has gone through it so they could share their experiences, insights, tips for getting through it successfully. So I reached out to Jeremy Mullins and asked him if he'd be willing to join us on the podcast. And fortunately, he said yes. So Jeremy, he holds his master's in nutrition. He's a registered dietitian. So he's gone through the challenge pretty recently. He also works at the 1stPhorm headquarters, and he's the director of the My Transformation Starts Today Challenge, which you probably have heard of, and it's helped thousands and thousands of men and women make incredible life changes. So I'm excited to talk to him. So Jeremy, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Hey man, thanks for having me on today, and I'm excited to share my story on 75 Hard. Maybe do a little bit of, I don't want to say definition of it, but just kind of clear up maybe some of the thoughts that people have if they've never heard about it, never done it. And then thanks for having me on here. I know we connected a few years ago just via social media. Kind of us in the same space, and both of us being fathers, and it took us a while to get on here, but I'm glad we're making it happen.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. And yeah, I was going to say the same thing because I know we connected a few years ago. I think even before you joined 1stPhorm, and you've been active on social, helping people with all aspects of their health and mainly nutrition space. So before we jump into all that, maybe just a quick couple moments on how you got started on this path and how you ended up at 1stPhorm and running this really insanely popular challenge that we see everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, my journey, I think, started really like growing up. I was the husky kid or the overweight kid, and I'm probably going to date myself with the next analogy, but I wore the number 72, and if you watched football in the 80s, you remember that the Refrigerator Perry for the Chicago Bears made that number kind of famous, and he was my being a lineman and an overweight kid, like he was kind of my idol in the football years. So. And it was a good thing at the time because I was still, physically able to do a lot by carrying extra weight. And if you think about that in sports, it was a good thing because I was bigger and stronger and carried more weight than individuals, but as in life, a lot of times, like, as I got older and into high school, like being overweight, being husky wasn't, quote unquote, the best approach to talk to the ladies, or really it was probably more myself, ego that was hurting, and didn't think of myself maybe as positive as some of the others. So that's kind of where like my passion, I think, really came from. I chose nursing school out of high school, and took a nutrition class, found out there was such thing as a dietitian. And that's kind of where the wheels started turning for me to go into that field. Fast forward to that, I've always been into fitness since then, but the fitness has looked different. I went through different stages, whether that's traditional gym training, whether that's going and doing powerlifting, CrossFit, triathlons. Like, it's just varied for me over the years, which has really aided me in my coaching skills because I've done a lot of things physical from that end. But yeah, I graduated from Marshall University in West Virginia, went on and worked for clinical for a couple of years, hooked up with a doctor where we did bariatric surgery. We had a gym inside of our office, so I was getting to do weight loss and wellness, but still some clinical stuff. That physician and I opened up the first CrossFit in West Virginia, so back in, I think, 2007, if I got my dates right. So kind of the early days of, the functional movement or CrossFit movement. From there, I went and taught college for a couple of years, then just ran my CrossFit facilities, and ended up going and working for the National Guard as a contract dietitian. Got into that community really well, got to know the sergeant major well, ended up direct commissioning at the young age of 37. So direct commissioned in as a dietitian, one of the very few dietitians that are in the National Guard that I know of. I mean, to be honest, I think I'm the only one, but I don't like to say that just in case there are another individual out there. So big Army component. Reserves have dietitians, but the National Guard traditionally hasn't. So I was blessed to get to do that, which I still am active in the West Virginia Guard from that standpoint. And then the past couple of years, I did move my family to St. Louis to continue this trend of coaching and helping people, with a bigger platform, right? So over those years, it started just working with bariatric clients, overweight clients, transitioned into, CrossFit. So I've always been doing nutrition and training. And as we grow in our career, Roy, and I think we touched on this a little bit offline, like as a personal trainer, you only got 40 hours in a week. So you're only able to touch really 40 people unless you're going to work, 60 hours, 80 hours a week, and that was the one thing that the CrossFit model gave me was I could teach group classes. So I went from maybe personal training 30 people to now I was, coaching 100 people. Right. And that just kind of has snowballed for me in the last decade of coaching people. Now I'm blessed to help coach thousands on a daily basis. And as I'm a little older now, I'm transitioning. I have a team here that I'm now coaching the coach. So I'm teaching my younger guys here, how to coach people, how to work with them, personal skills, some of the things to, it's not always about the X's and O's, like how to overcome, just personal relations with the individuals they're helping.
Yeah, pretty cool, man. I mean, I see you all over the internet too. And even in Googling your name, you pop up everywhere and you're super active in the community, in different communities. I love it. I love to see that. And so, yeah, I'm kind of excited to hear your experiences because I know you work with Andy and he's got a lot of stuff going on and it's a great company. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't really promote many supplements. There's a couple of companies that I actually will trust, 1stPhorm is one of them. So, yeah, I'm excited. So, when I heard about this challenge, I heard about it a while ago, but a friend of mine, Larry Hagner, who runs the Dad Edge Alliance, has gone through it a few times. I think he's finishing up with one right now. And he had nothing but amazing things to say. A bunch of his guys in his groups have gone through it. And so I started looking at it. I ordered Andy's book, read it, and then started doing a little more research. And I typically don't run super strict challenges. We do different challenges almost every month in our private group. And this one obviously is strict. And so I figured, what? I mean, I'm just hearing so many great things. It's a great company. It's a great mission. And I love his message behind it. And, so we decided to do it on November 1st, start November 1st. And, maybe you can just tell us, for those that are listening that don't know what this is, you can tell us what this 75 Hard Challenge is.
Well, I think the first thing, and a lot of people ask, on 75 Hard, like, is it a fitness challenge? Right. And it's not. Like, in the social media world, I think it's easy for us to look and see some of these physical changes that we see in individuals who go through the program. Right. And it's just this view that, oh, okay, it's a physical program. It's a fat loss program. Right. Because we do see some great changes that come out of it. But I want to let people know, like, it's not a physical challenge per se. Right. Because, you look at one of the action items that you have to do, is do 2 workouts a day for a minimum of 45 minutes. So if I put my strength and conditioning coach, hat on, I look at it and I'm like, well, that's not ideal, because if we look at tapering and taking rest days and, Roy, both of us being, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, like being a little more seasoned, AKA older, like we need that recovery. It's about that balance. Right. Yep. So I want to make sure that people understand you will be physically challenged, but it's not necessarily physically challenging program. Right. It's not necessarily to get you to, do an Ironman or do a marathon or anything like that. It is really more mental discipline, which we see a lot of people lack. And I think that's the one big concept I would like to put out there. And we see it, like, in the transformation challenge, I always call this the 30-30-30 rule. And what I mean by that to the listener, even when, right now with the way the challenge is set up, someone could pay $47 to get my services, which is a steal, right? Just the way that the company pays me and then I teach, right? Back when I would charge $1,500 for maybe a 3-month program, this was still the same as giving away free information. 30% of the people are going to have results. Another 30% are just not ready to make the change. And then 30% is what I always call, as a coach, they're on the fence. Like, we're trying to pull them in. Right. And I think that's one thing with the 75 hard program you don't get. You have to commit 100% or you're not going to be successful in it. So I think it increases this 30-30-30 rule that I've seen for my 2 decades of coaching people and seeing, how that works inside of that. So that's kind of the first thing I wanted to, kind of put out to the listeners on that, because I know a lot of them are going to see this, as they're, looking out online or seeing it on the website. They're going to think that's more physical, but it is truly more of a mental challenge.
Yep, absolutely. I got that too, which is, it's great. Fitness challenges are fine, but, taking it up and really making it more about something that, honestly, most of us struggle with, including me for sure, mental toughness.
Yeah. And we look at it, and he talks in the book about, it's going to build confidence, self-belief, self-esteem, discipline, determination, perseverance, and grit. And I think that's true. And all those things, are mental aspects, but they're physical too, right? If you have more grit inside of, your training, or, especially if we're speaking maybe directly to maybe endurance athletes, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of us right now, the listener included, we could go do a marathon, right? You could go do a 50K. I believe that in my heart that people can go do that physically. It's just mentally they give up. Okay. But if someone literally held a gun to your head and said, you would have to do this or else, fill in the blank, most people would be able to go finish that marathon or that 50K. Now, don't get me wrong. You're going to be sore the next day. Your feet are going to hurt. You're going to be tore down, but you could physically do it. But most people would sit back and be like, I can't do that. I can't make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm honestly more interested in how the mental toughness applies to other areas of their lives, because most of the guys in my groups aren't quote unquote athletes. They're regular dads. And so, a lot of them aren't going to be doing rucks and mutters and stuff like that. It's how can they apply it to their daily life of, their work, their business, their family, just having that sense of grittiness, which we're lacking. And I think that might be one of the biggest takeaways from all of this is how do we apply this, and I'm actually doing this personally to get that aspect for my business. I struggle with mental toughness when trying to build this business. It's highs and lows. I'm constantly on a roller coaster. You know how it is trying to build an online business. And so, I could work out, sure, that's not a problem, but it's developing that mindset of, I don't really feel like doing something today, whatever it is. That's the discipline. That's where it comes in. This is really crappy. I don't want to have to do this, but boom. Yeah. That mental toughness kicks in. And that's,
and I'll give one example and you're going to see this throughout the program. Okay. And just, so individuals know, I went through this back in the spring when everything was kind of getting shut down with COVID. We didn't really know what was going on. I was afraid I was going to get put on active duty for the military, for the Guard, to go back to West Virginia. My wife was getting called in she's a nurse. So we really didn't know what was going on. We took our kids to the in-laws in Florida, and we just would say, hey, for the next, I think it was, I want to say 42 days, right? They were going to stay there until we figured out what was happening. So in my mind, and I'm just like everyone else, let me say that, guys, so you might be listening to this and be like, well, I just don't have time. I can't do it. That was me, for probably the first year that Andy had this out there. And I had these events on. So last October, I did a full Ironman that I was doing with, a client, and give you guys where my heart and my passion goes. This is a client that I helped lose 80 pounds and 3 years ago couldn't run a mile, right? He wanted to do an Ironman. So I was like, cool, I'll be your huckleberry. Let's do this. But in my mind, I kept justifying, okay, I can't do 2 workouts a day because, that's going to tear me down. I can't recover. I had those same thoughts that maybe a lot of you guys are having now. And Steve, maybe that you're having, right? Like, oh, I can't do this. I don't, I had all those. So when I knew the kids were going to be gone for, extended period, like I needed that structure in my life. And that's when I went all in and said, okay, I'm going to do that. But one of the things that we talk about with like that mental toughness was I remember, and I was doing a ruck for 145-minute workout a day. So I'd put my ruck on, I would go out and walk because this allowed me to answer messages online, as I was walking. And I remember about 3 weeks in, all of a sudden that walk turned to, okay, Jeremy, you see trash sitting on the side of the road. Okay. How can I make this harder? right? So it's almost like this transition will occur, 3 to 4 weeks in. You as an individual will start looking at how do you make things tougher for you, because you just start becoming more resilient, right? And I remember that, I remember the day I posted it online, picking up 2 trash bags full in my neighborhood, right? And then that become something I did. All of a sudden, those rucks that were walks turned into a little bit of jogging. A 20-pound vest went to a 40-pound vest, right? You will look for ways to make this harder actually in your journey. And that becomes, we're talking about that mental toughness, because, and I can't explain it any other way than like a light switch. In the beginning, it's like, man, this is tough. It's tough. And then all of a sudden there's going to be the switch that goes where you're actually looking to make it a little harder.
I've heard that. Yeah. So, before we talk further about that, so I don't think we've gotten into just the things that are required. So for those of you that don't know anything about the 75 hard, there are 5 critical tasks that he set for this challenge, and you need to meet them every single day. Failures to do so on any given day at any point during the 75 days, you start over at day 1, which is the hard part, right? Because it's easy to forget one thing. So number 1, you mentioned, right? Exercise twice a day, 45 minutes at least each. One has to be outside. You need to drink a gallon of water a day. You need to choose any diet and stick with it. 0 cheat meals, 0 alcohol. You have to read a minimum of 10 pages of nonfiction, and then take 1 progress photo every single day. So some of those are pretty easy for some of us. Some are going to be more challenging. The idea is to do all of them every single day. I think that's
one thing I'd like to
in,
note on that, though. Don't overthink the easy ones.
Yeah.
Because that's where a lot of people will mess up. Like, is take the photo. As easy as that sounds.
Yeah.
Physically, that's not hard.
Yep.
Right? It's just a click.
Yep.
That is one that actually catches a lot of people, right? So even though, like, we say that, okay, that one's an easy one, be aware of that. A couple of things on there, 2 45-minute workouts. One of those must be outside. That's something, to consider. And that one, once again, is mental, right? And it's going to be physical challenge. And sometimes, because depending on where you live, you're not going to have perfect weather the entire time, but I can tell you guys, I'm one of these that, once you start building the momentum, you're going to want it tougher. Okay. If it happens to snow on you, it happens to rain on you, you will embrace that, because you'll realize that you're the only one out there during that day or during that session. And that will bring more actual, as crazy as this sounds, joy to you. Right. Yep. Follow a diet. And I want to just touch on that one a little bit, because one of the key here is, guys, is, Andy doesn't give a specific diet. Inside his book, he talks about what he did. And it's very, to the point of, you need to pick a diet and stick to it. Okay. Now, with that being said, in there, it says, don't just do macro counting. Now, what we mean by that is, you can't do the traditional, if it fits your macros. Okay. You can't just wait all day and be like, okay, I'm going to eat 6 slices of pizza and drink a protein shake just to hit my numbers. Okay. And I want to be very adamant about that. You could still count macros. That's fine. But what you want to do is set your diet in the beginning. So what I did personally, I have issues with peanut butter. And what I mean by that is, if I'm not weighing and measuring, 2 tablespoons of peanut butter can turn to 6 really quickly. Uh-huh. So my rules were, I decided to do just fasting, because to me, that's a very cut and dry rule. Like, I'm not going to eat until 12 o'clock each day. So I just did a small fast, nothing huge, 12. So I had to wait till 12 to eat every day. And then I had to fit within my macros and my calories. That was my specific goal, or protein and calories. So that's what we teach here as a simple way, because carbohydrate and fat are both fuels. But I also put some rules on, like, stuff that I struggle with personally. And that's what I would encourage people to do. Okay. So for example, some of you guys may have no problem having a blueberry muffin, but a blueberry muffin to some people may be considered a, unhealthy source, right? Everybody's got different thoughts, processes. Okay. So what I chose was no fast food, fast till noon. And then I had to land my protein and my calories. And if I chose peanut butter, it had to be pre-portioned out peanut butter. Okay. Because that is kind of where sometimes I get in trouble with kids. It's like, oh, well, a fry tax here, a fry tax there, well, I'll just eat, a McDonald's burger because they're having nuggets, and then overeating peanut butter. I feel like that is where I get in trouble. So I made those rules specific for me inside of this follow a diet.
Yep. And I really want to touch on that, because that's a huge piece, because it's confusing. And someone say, you're just going to leave it up to us to figure it out. And so what I always tell my guys is, obviously, and this, there's no best diet for anybody or everybody. It's a very personal thing. And I say it has to be healthy, it has to be sustainable, and it has to get results for you. And then, so if that's Mediterranean, if it's paleo, if it's carnivore, if it's keto, I don't really care. If it's healthy for you and it's working for you, and you can stick with, that's a thing. Like, I've had so many guys jump into challenges saying, all right, I'm doing the keto, yet 50 or 60% of their current diet is carbs. And so I'm like, you can't go from that to zero and expect to succeed. You can grit it out for a week. Maybe you're going to be so miserable. You're going to hate your life, and it's not worth it. You're not going to sacrifice everything that you love and be miserable all the time for the sake of losing a few pounds. That makes no sense. So you have to find whatever that is. And that's, like I said, you modified it, and yours was very simple, right? And for a lot of guys, that's going to work. Stop drinking soda, no more fast food, focus on, yes, obviously calories, the deficit, and then protein. It can be that simple. It doesn't have to be something so complex where you need 100 recipes and you have to be prepared and you have to spend an hour cooking and preparing. That doesn't work for most guys. They just aren't going to do that. And I don't want to do that either. I mean, I do this for a living. I don't want to do that stuff. So keeping it simple, make sure it's healthy and it's working for you. And I think that's the key. And your goal is what? 0 cheats, not one M&M, not one Skittle. If that's not on your diet, then you start over, right? And that's the thing.
I think that's very like that. We know, M&M, Skittles, like you guys, we're aware of what would be considered a cheat, right? Yes. And that's where you got to set those rules earlier, because people are like, what about protein cookies? Well, okay, that's just, you may need to make those rules early. Don't wait till you're 3 or 4 weeks in and think about having something like that, right? Yep. If you got, what, I'm gonna make protein cookies because this is, once again, something that's sustainable, something that I'm going to do, then I think that's okay. But once again, we know that, Skittles and fried food, some of the things that we would traditionally put as bad should be off limits. And that should be the rules that you set for yourself going into it. And that'll make it a little bit easier from the anxiety standpoint when it comes to, okay, what is allowed and what's not allowed. And then when in doubt, if it's questionable, just don't consume it, right? Like you get to that point of like, should I have this or should I not have it? Just be like, you know what? No, I didn't set those standards for me in the beginning. So if it's questionable, I'm not going to have it.
Yep. That's it. That's exactly right. And so, following that, and I think doing this over the holidays is an extra challenge. And this is the thing is I've had a lot of guys already just give up because they're like, whoa, first of all, it's cold. It's going to be winter, which we talked about, you're going to want to embrace that. And it's easy to use that as an excuse, but then it's, well, we've got Thanksgiving, we've got Christmas, I'm going to eat like a pig and I drink lots of beer. And I said, yeah, that's what you normally do, but do you have to do that? Right. You can stick to your diet, whatever it is you choose, and eat a perfectly fine, delicious meal. You're not going to be pigging out most likely, but that's how you got where you are now. You have to make some sacrifices if you want to change, if you want your body composition to change, if you want more energy, you want to lose weight, lose fat. Yeah, you're going to have to change some things. You can't continue eating and doing all the same things you've been doing because that's where it got you where you're at now. So yeah, you're going to have to make some sacrifices, but that's what this is all about, right? I mean, you have to make some changes that are ultimately going to help you and make you better. So yeah, going outside when it's freezing and it sucks, that makes you mentally stronger because like you said, nobody is doing it, right?
Yeah. Well, and that goes, there's no alcohol and no cheat meals. And that's something that's, I know very tough, especially the holiday season, but the thing you gotta look at is like, that's truly not bringing anything good to you. Okay. And I get it. Like people say, well, one drink, red wine has resveratrol and it's antioxidants. No, alcohol affects sleep. Alcohol affects our ability to burn body fat. Like there's no, and guys, and I'll say this, like I enjoy bourbon. I'm a fan of bourbon. I'm a fan of having a drink every now and again, special occasions, all that stuff. But even for me, not having any issues out of it, like I can say, well, I can choose to have it. I can choose not to have it. It was still good to go away from it for those days. Right. So, and remember when, Roy, and I like what and I think you and I, the reason we connect is we're on this same page when it comes to sustainability for long-term, hey, we get it. You want to have some drinks, like after this is over with, cool. Think of it as that short-term, commitment from that standpoint. So drinking a gallon a day, it sounds easy, but it's one of those things like if you're not in the habit of drinking water, guys and gals, like you could struggle. Good rule of thumb is half your body weight in ounces. And that's the reason a gallon works for most people is it fits right where we need to be. Yep. If you think you're going to struggle with this, what I recommend is, bro out on me, carry that gallon of water around, and with measurements on it, and make sure you get it in, don't put it off. That's one of those ones that I think is easy, but sometimes will catch people up. And the other thing on the reading, I would say, one thing we need to know is it can't be audiobooks. It needs to be physically reading a book. Yes. But I wouldn't put this one off. I've seen a lot of people fall asleep reading, right? Yep. So I would encourage, some of these tasks, that are like that, the photo, the reading to do first thing in the morning, right? Because I think this also creates those habits for sustainability that we talk about. So if I want to improve on something, whether that be, reaching out to old friends, right? Then I want to do that first thing in the morning, right? I want to get up and attack that task. So I want to make sure these tasks, are early in the morning, especially the reading and the photo. That way, at the end of the day, when you get home and the kids have practice and the kids have this, like things don't get distracted from that standpoint.
Yep. And it's such a great habit too. I mean, I have friends that haven't picked up a book since high school. I'm like, that's crazy to me. But yeah, that's easy to get tripped up on. And like you said, with the water, that's the one I'm most fearful of, because if you're not drinking a lot of water as it is, you're going to be in the bathroom every 15 minutes. I mean, it's happened to me multiple times when I've ramped it up. And I think the key partially is don't start day one where all you're drinking is soda and coffee right now, which is obviously, a diuretic. Don't start drinking a gallon from day one and you're going to be literally in the bathroom all day, all night. Ramp up to it. If you have the time, which is why we're talking about it in our groups now, a few weeks early, start, like you said, I teach the same thing, half your body weight in ounces. Start there, but get it every single day and just start increasing it every day. So when you get to day one, you're not like, holy shit, I have so much water to drink and it's 10:30 at night and you still have, 25 ounces to go. And you're like, well, I can't drink this. I'll be up, peeing all night. And right. It will happen. I mean, if I don't prepare myself, I'm in the bathroom 5-6 times a night. And that just obviously, kills your sleep, which obviously is extremely important to everything, getting enough quality sleep. So yeah, that's my 2 cents on water. I mean, it sounds easy, but in my opinion, in experience, it's not.
And one thing I want to add, and Andy's very adamant about this, like if you're going to do 75 hard, you're going to do those tasks that we just mentioned. Like there's no deviation to it. You don't create your own program, et cetera, et cetera. However, what I want to add to it, there's nothing wrong with adding some extra thing, right? Mm-hmm. So when I went through it, I wanted to get back into the habit of daily reading the Bible. So I added that to my task of 10 pages, of either nutrition, self-help books, and I added, okay, spend some time in the Bible too, right? Also, no phone, after a certain time, spend with the kids. So those were 2 other things that I added in because once again, I wanted to do it to help change my habits, right? To mm-hmm. develop more discipline in many aspects, not just, dropping a few extra pounds that I put on, not, just, I want to be more mental tough to do, more athletic events. Like I want to be a better person overall, right? So while it is said, and it is mandatory that you don't change anything that we just listed, I would be totally fine if someone wanted to add some onesies or twosies on there that fits them, right? So if you catch yourself, not spending undivided attention to your kids, because I get it, life is busy, it's hectic, right? Maybe put that, all right, every day, 20 minutes, whatever it looks like, so I would say, feel free to add a few things like that if you choose to.
Okay. Yeah. Good point. And I have another question for you, but before we do that, I want to make it clear because I don't remember if we touched on this specifically, but with the workouts, the 45-minute workouts, automatically you assume, oh shit, I've got to be, doing, heavy weights in the gym, or I'm going to have to be doing some kind of conditioning work. And that's not it. So, if you have a dog, take her for a walk. If you have kids, go out and play tennis with them, something that's very active you can do and you can count. You don't have to be hitting the weights. And again, like Jeremy said, it's counterproductive for guys, especially when we get into our 30s and 40s. Our bodies are just not going to take that kind of beating day in and day out for 75 days. We need the rest, recovery, active recovery, mobility work. And yeah, walking is great exercise. So that certainly counts. And if you're way out of shape and you can't, spend that amount of time exercising, yeah, light walks are fine. You mean to do what you can, but as long as you get those 45 minutes, and yes, you're going to have to be walking in the rain or the mud or the snow, but you have to kind of be where you're at. Don't think that you have to go all out and you're just pounding your body day in and day out.
Yes, it's purpose movement. I think that's a good way to define it. It's purpose movement, and walking, guys, and this is going off a little bit of a caveat. Walking has been, I always say this, and I think Andy all the time, he's made walking cool again, right? You go back 8 years ago, but even before 75 hard, one of the things I've always been good at is getting people to drop body fat, right? Especially older individuals. That's kind of my niche. But I always use walking, because walking, if you think of us as human beings, that's what we were designed to do, right? Walking doesn't break your body down. Now it will, and I'll get to this in a second with 2 workouts a day. But most of the time, walking is not going to break your body down, right? You're going to be able to recover from it day to day, which means it doesn't impact your training, but it also burns additional calories. So if someone's new to me and they're new to fitness, they're really not going to burn that many calories in an hour of exercise. Like, it's just the nature of it. Like, you're deconditioned. You're not going to burn that many calories. But if I can get someone walking an hour a day, then all of a sudden, like, they're burning a few hundred extra calories every day, and that adds up. Okay. So I think walking is great for that additional second workout. And then once again, there's going to be a point where your body's going to kind of break down. You're going to be sore. Maybe you get some blisters on your feet. Like, that could occur. But once you kind of get through that, all of a sudden you're going to be looking to make those walks harder, whether that be to go faster, add a weighted vest, pick up trash. Like, you're going to see that transition. But I will tell you, it will get hard before that happens.
Yep. Good point. Good point. And so, I've had quite a few guys reach out to me on social already about this, hey, I'm ready to do this challenge. And they don't know a whole lot about it. What's your take on this? How important do you think it is for someone to have a why before they start this? As in, why is this so important that they do this 75-day challenge that's going to obviously require a lot of dedication and commitment? Have you seen, the difference between someone that says, let's just go for it, and then gets into it and then doesn't realize, oh shit, there's so much involved and I don't really want to do this that much, versus the person that's like, you know what, I absolutely have to make a change in my life. This is why. And this is why I'm doing it.
I mean, I think that's important for all aspects of life, right? Like, we got to have a deeper reason. And let me tell you what I mean by that, guys, is a lot of times we look at the fat loss. What do I want to do? I want to drop some body fat. Okay. Why? Right. And I know a lot of people will teach SMART goals and like, well, I want to drop 20 pounds of body fat in, 9 weeks. Okay. That's SMART goals. It's specific, right? It's measurable. I got it. But why? What is the reason behind that? Okay. So for me, a lot of times, being brutally honest, it's aesthetics to a certain point. What I mean by that is, I'm being put in a lot in front of people, whether we're talking soldiers, whether we're talking, thousands of people we're helping on the transformation platform. If I'm overweight, I don't feel good about the information that I'm putting out, because here I'm supposed to be a leader and an instructor. And if I can't handle my stuff, what does that say about me? Yeah. Right. So that's kind of my deeper whys. I have to live this lifestyle that I'm promoting to people. Okay. So that why is very important, because here's what's going to happen. There's going to be days that you're unmotivated. There's going to be days that you don't feel like doing X, Y, or Z. And you're going to need something to go back to other than that. Well, I just want to drop 20 pounds. Okay. So that's more specific for fat loss. But if we're going back to why 75 hard, you guys can have success. And what I mean by that is, you can be disciplined. There's a lot of you that might be thinking, I can't do this. I can't have that discipline, because maybe years of falling off the wagon when it comes to exercise programs, falling off the wagon when it comes to diet programs. Like, in our minds, we feel like we can't be disciplined because that's what our track record says. But you can be. Like, you can have the confidence. So I think, maybe digging deeper and being like, okay, why do you want these things, right? Is it to be, promoted in our work? Is it to be a better husband? Is it to be a better father? Find those nuggets of why, because you're going to need to lean on those when things get hard. Okay. First couple of weeks, first few days, I don't like, a lot of people, like, they hammer through this. It's not hard for them. It's just checking the blocks. Boom, 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 boom. there's going to be a point where it gets tough, and you're going to have a decision. You're going to either quit on yourself, or you're going to continue moving forward to make yourself better. And having a why to go back to and think about, I feel like, is vital in that crucial decision.
I agree. And I think something like this, the reason why it's so successful and so popular is because it's helping people on a bigger scale than just fitness. But would you say there's a certain population or certain people that this challenge is not for?
I mean, the only people I would say like it would be not for is like, we're truly talking about elite athletes, or even semi-professional. Like if we're talking, CrossFit game, or you've got, you're trying to PR in your age group and go to Kona in a triathlon, like something like that, right? Because, I put my strength and conditioning hat on again, and I think, okay, we need to peak. We need to have rest days. We need to peak from that standpoint. That would be the only people I'd say don't do it. And then it would just be like, don't do it during season, right? Like, let's go do it during the off season. That is the only people I would say that wouldn't be for, because, the reality of it is we all need a little bit more grit. We all need a little bit more discipline, right? And even in the military, like I see discipline, like we get it created when we're in courses, when we're in boot camp, we're in these schools. But a lot of times once you're done with that schooling and that training, a lot of that discipline will stay for most people. But you can see it starting to slip in others. Right. So, I think this is a good way to bring yourself back up to a certain standard that you're looking for. Right.
Yep.
But as far as like who it wouldn't be for, it would just be those, once again, elite athletes, or even below the elite athlete where you're not getting paid for your physical event, but maybe it matters a lot and you put a lot of time and effort into it, and I would say, okay, wait till your race is done or your event is done, then look to do it afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. So I want to talk about one aspect of this, and one of the main reasons why our groups for dads and a lot of other groups are so successful is the accountability piece, right? Because a lot of us as dads are on our own. I have a very small network of friends, like two. I don't have an accountability. I don't have support. I don't have any of that stuff outside of what I've created online with the Fit Dad Nation, the inner circle. And I know that can be the difference maker between people that succeed and fail, especially in difficult challenges like this. For example, Larry that I spoke about earlier, he's tried 3 times going through the 75 hard without accountability, tried it on his own. I know this, you've probably seen it a lot too. And yeah, when you feel like you're by yourself and you've got all these tasks every day and it just starts mounting and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. And then the doubt comes in, you don't have anybody there, someone there to help you and say, you know what, man, you got this, right? And that's why I think we're so successful in what we do, at least, is because, we have a tribe of guys that are there for each other, all going through the same shit, and, me as well. And I think honestly, that is such a huge piece, and guys tend to overlook it and be like, I got this, I can do this, I'm a man, I can handle this, but it just doesn't work that way for the most part. I mean, what are your experiences with that?
No, and I think whether we're talking about specifically for the 75 hard or we're talking specific, because I went through it with, accountability partners and friends, right? Like, I think any transformation, any program, any schooling, it's important to have a battle buddy. It's important to have a accountability partner. It's important to have a group, right? Because that is one thing I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for your group because you guys are doing this together, right? Because you're going to be able to talk about the emotions that come out of this, and I talked about, like, in my words, at 3 weeks in, like, looking to make it harder, right? And Andy mentions, like, day 15 to 21 that, people are going to hear all the excuses, right? They're going to look for explanations, why they're doing this, why not they're doing this. And for most people, a lot of times it ends at that time period. 15 to 21 days is where most people in the program at, right? But if you push through for that, that's where you're starting to have that transformation, right? And talk about, day 29 through 35 specifically, like there's this flow state that occurs, that it just becomes easy and your focus is dialed in, and things that pop up don't even bother your focus, right? And you'll start like seeing other people where you used to be before. And you'll notice those excuses they give. You'll notice those slight things where it's just maybe they're not as efficient as you are because you are so focused. Like that's going to be part of the journey. But yeah, like to answer that specifically, I would say I would not encourage someone to go into it without an accountability partner. That would be my biggest like takeaway from that is I would like find someone, even if it's just one person, that's a simple text at night, like completed all 5 tasks, check, whatever it looks like. I would encourage that.
Yeah, for sure. And so this challenge is completely free. Andy doesn't ask for a dime for this. People have formed their own groups, their own networks. I mean, they're doing this on their own for sure. And that's great. What I'm doing in my group, the inner circle is adding that accountability. So, in the group, I'll have, the guides and help, and we're going to do weekly calls specifically geared to help guys with this challenge. And having accountability worksheets, daily check-ins, all those things. And I think that's important, and again, if you can do this on your own, if you have your own people and you're comfortable with that, absolutely. Absolutely. But if you want to be part of a tribe, you want to be part of a group that's going to hold you accountable every day through this. Yeah, that's why we have this. And you're certainly more than welcome to check out what we're doing starting November 1st. So a couple last things too is, obviously with the holidays coming, you being a nutritionist dietitian, what would you tell your people or our people or people listening how to go into the holidays, how to either prep mentally or physically? Because for the most part, we're in this business, so maybe it's a little bit easier for us, but for the average guy, all this food's coming at them, all the habits, the last 25 years, they've had the same foods, the same experiences, the families together, they drink a bottle of wine, whatever. But, they're on this thing and they're having to make some decisions. What do you tell that person going into that? Be like, okay, you're whatever, what it's going to be 3 weeks into the challenge or so, when Thanksgiving hits, how do you avoid starting over when you get to that day?
I mean, here's the great thing with it being the time starting November. I think by the time you get there, if you have not fallen off, mentally, you're going to change a little bit and it's not going to matter. Like that's my honest, approach to that. Okay. By the time Thanksgiving rolls around, like you're going to have that confidence. You're going to start gaining that and realize like, I'm different. I can get through this. Okay. With that being said, let me just talk about holidays from putting the dietitian hat on with this, guys. It's one day, right? And I want you guys to really think about that. And I always give this analogy of if you're driving down the road and you have a flat tire, like you wouldn't get out and say, screw it, and flatten the other 3 tires. But we do that in the world of diet, right? Like we're on a diet, we're on an exercise program. Maybe we miss one day of working out, or we miss, we have one bad, snack, or we miss a meal, whatever the case is. And then we're basically like, F it, I'll start on Monday, right? No matter when this occurs. That's the same thing as, once again, having one flat tire and getting out and just taking a knife and flatten the other 3. You would not fathom to do that. So why do you self-sabotage yourself? Okay. So the way that I, look at it is, just make sure that you have a game plan going into the holiday season, right? From that standpoint, if we're getting a little bit more back to tactical with 75 hard, just have a game plan, know what you're going to do going in. Okay. The good thing about Thanksgiving is generally like turkey, right? And there's veggies there. So you can have a good setting and still stay within macros. No problem there. Yes, if you make it where you have to stay away from sweets, you would have to stay away from sweets, whatever your rules are, you have to hit that, but have a game plan going in. Okay. But I think the timing of it, to be honest, Steve, the timing of it, I think is just going to be perfect in the sense that they're going to gain so much momentum and self-confidence that we don't have to worry about it. That is my honest opinion. Now, I have to be honest with that is, okay, we know that 100% may not make it. Okay. I want you guys to finish 75 hard one time. I truly do. And what I mean by that is I think it's life-changing. But let me preface this. After you finish one time, let's say you go back to do it again, or you're in a phase, one of the different phases. Let's say you go 74 days and you mess up. You get right back on track. You do all these habits we're talking about for 74 more days and you mess up. And you continue that for 2 years. So you only complete this program one time, but then you always go back in it and you make these slight mistakes 74 days in. You're still going to be a better person 2 years down the road. I want you guys to understand that, right? And that is where, and maybe we can do a follow-up, podcast and talk about this, where I'm pushing, to people, make sure that we have sustainable or discipline that's sustainable, right? Because doing a program, whether it be our 8-week challenge, whether it be doing 75 hard, and then coming off the program afterwards and going back to the old habits or becoming even a worse version of yourself, like that's not good long-term. Okay. So I just want to add that in there. And I think that's very important to think about, from the standpoint, but I do want individuals that are going to start on November 1st with you to go all in, to finish this one time, because I truly believe it's life-changing in the fact that you will develop more discipline than you probably ever have as a human being, secondary to the program and what you're doing for yourself.
I agree. And I've gotten a lot of feedback already saying, well, why don't we just start this on the 1st of January? Why do we have to do it over the holidays? And, those are typical excuses. And like you said, let's start the year out right. But yeah, let's push it right now. Yes, it's going to be even harder to challenge yourself over these holidays and make some changes. But what happens because of that, right? That's where the growth is. You're not going to make this as easy as possible on yourself. Well, let's just do it starting January 1st. I'll be all prepared, blah, blah, blah. No. We'll get it done. We'll get it done now. Yeah. And you're going to come out much stronger because of that.
Well, and that's, once again, that'll be a shift in mental. Like the individuals that are saying that right now, why don't we wait? Once you do it, you will be saying, I'm glad we didn't wait.
Yep.
I wish we'd have done it in a harder part. I wish we would have started 1 week before Thanksgiving, so it would have went through Christmas too. You know what I mean? Like those are that. And it's crazy to say that. And you guys are like, well, there's no way. Why would we think that? Like I had those same thoughts. I did the same thing. Well, I got this going on. I got that going on. Right. Like the same thought process went through my mind. And then you do have to commit. And then I look back at it and be like, I want to do it again. And I want to do it in the coldest part of the year. Like, right. That's what's going through my mindset now, is waiting and doing it in the coldest part of the year. So that I'm out there, in that outdoor workout, below freezing or whatever the case it is. Right. So there will be that shift in the mental aspect, which I think will be cool to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, man. I'd love to do a follow-up with this, even maybe halfway through it, just to check in and see, if there's anything else you can add to the experience. I'm sure there'll be guys that are struggling. I'm sure some guys maybe haven't been, falling out by then. I don't know, but yeah, I'd love to do a follow-up. But in the meantime, I would love people to check out what you do. So, you're so active on social, and I've seen your community is really engaged, and you're always dropping just a lot of content, a lot of valuable content. So where do people join that or find out, more about what you're doing?
Yeah. So I'm very active, of course, on Facebook and Instagram. So on Instagram, it's just jeremy.d.mullins. And then on, that page, I do a lot of education, but then also a lot of just family stuff and like being a father from that aspect. And then on Facebook, I do have a couple, I call them private blogs or Facebook groups, but I just do education in there. And one of the groups there is just hashtag Black Sheep Dietitian, or Jeremy Mullins, hashtag Black Sheep Dietitian. But if you can't find the group, people are welcome to just message me and I can give them the link to that group. And in that, I just do, some weekly education, whether that be nutrition training, from that aspect. And if anyone is interested, like the My Transformation Starts Today is a free program, people can enter that. We do 4 of those a year. So that's something, if someone's interested, in doing, they're more than welcome to reach out, via that platform too.
Very cool. Very cool. And for those of you listening that want to learn more about what we're doing with the 75 Hard in the Inner Circle, I don't have a direct link to the challenge. This isn't a challenge where I'm just going to open it up and say, okay, here, buy now. You have to be part of the Inner Circle. And to do that, you have to go through the application process, because I want guys that are interested in more than just, hey, I want to do this challenge and I want to lose some weight. I want to know that you want to be better on a lot of different areas of your life. So right now I'm sharing all that information inside of our private Facebook group. It's a free group, fitdadnation.com/community. Anyway, Jeremy, man, I appreciate your time. This has been awesome. I'm actually going to post this today. So I want to get the word out, hopefully get more guys interested in what we're doing. So thank you so much for your time, my man.
Dave, I appreciate it and looking forward to being back on.
Yep, absolutely. See you, buddy.
Later.